YouTube. This is John again with another opinionated rant or whatever you want to call them. Wasn't sure if I was going to end up doing another one of these, but had a bit of fun with the last one, and appreciate everyone who's given it a view. This one is going to be a little bit different. I normally probably just wanted to talk about politics and things like that when dealing with these videos. That's really where my passion lies. But for anyone who owns a television or it has access to the internet this past week, you really couldn't go on anything without hearing about what is the biggest story right now, which is the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case that's going on right now. And there's been a real debacle is probably the word that I would say when coming to this case. And the whole point of this video is just to give some facts that a lot of people really aren't looking for. And if you don't think that I'm telling the truth about that, go to Yahoo, go to Google, go to Bing. This story is not trending there. For something that has supposedly captured the nation's attention, people are not going to find news stories. They are hanging out on Facebook, they are hanging out on Twitter or YouTube and getting their opinions from like-minded people, and just not the best way to handle something that's a criminal act and something that of this magnitude. That's just not responsible. Beneath this video, I'm going to put links to everything that I talk about down here. This is my opinion on stuff, but I'm going to do opinions based on facts. That's one thing I try to pride myself on this one. I'm quite sure there's going to be plenty of people who cannot stand the position I take. That's absolutely fine. As with my last video, bring it on. I do not care. But we're going to talk about this the way that it needs to be talked about, because I've watched videos in support of Trayvon, which are very biased. I've watched videos in support of George Zimmerman that are very biased. A lot of opinion, basing their opinion off of what this one person said, what this other person said, or what they heard someone said. And no one's going to these sites. These stories are buried. You have to go several pages beyond the main search page on Yahoo, Google, Bing, any of this stuff. And I was going to bring a video out earlier, but I did not want to jump the gun. I wanted to let some more facts get out there. I'm glad I did, especially yesterday. A lot of new stuff came out, and we're going to cover all of that right now. So feel free after this video, if you make it all the way through it, leave me all your hate, your respect, whatever, questions, comments, completely fine. Starting out, the one thing that everyone needs to know, I guess, is a groundwork of this. The shooting happened on February 26th in a place called Sanford, Florida. Originally, there was not, I'm sure within the actual community there was, this was always kind of a big deal, but as far as nationwide attention, there really wasn't much brought onto this until about the past week and a half. But according to initial reports, and I'm not going to go by what the media says, because a lot of what the stuff on the media has been saying is absolutely false. One of the links I'm providing is actually the Sanford Police Department's pretty much press release about all this stuff. So I'm going to go based off of what the people involved said, not what MSNBC, Fox, CBS, ABC, any of these other media outlets want to make the conversation about it. I'm not going to do that. But according to cops, there was an eyewitness that was interviewed also that night who corroborated George Zimmerman's story. There's the 911 calls as well. George Zimmerman was basically a security guard at this gated community. Trayvon did not live at this gated community. He was there with his father, from what I understand, visiting his father's fiancée. They were watching the All-Star game. During halftime, one of the story goes, Trayvon went to the store to go get some snacks for his brother, yada, 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 whatever. Came back through the neighborhood, had a hoodie on, which, doesn't mean this or that. Supposedly it was raining that night. Whatever. Zimmerman was the security guard for this area. This area had multiple break-ins within the past year or so, month or so, whatever. And so Zimmerman saw Trayvon, thought that it looked suspicious, said he was walking around looking at houses, kind of looked like he was sneaking around, possibly trolling the area because they had break-ins. He was worried about that this may be one of the people who had done it. So he calls up 911. Most people have heard the 911 calls. During this call, it's obvious, Zimmerman gets out of his vehicle. You can hear the door opening. You can hear the dinging from the sensor of the door being opened. He then, shuts the door and proceeds to go after Trayvon, whatever. The dispatcher tells Zimmerman that that is not necessary, to basically go wait by his vehicle. The cops are on their way. Zimmerman responds, okay, tell them to call me when they get here. And the phone conversation is over with. And within the next few minutes, Zimmerman is found, with a busted nose. The back of his head is beaten open a little bit. He's got dirt, grass, all kinds of, residue and stuff on his back. It looks like he was in a scuffle. And Trayvon Martin has been shot in the chest one time, and he's dead. So, according to Zimmerman, after he hung up with the dispatcher, he went back to his vehicle. While he was on his way back to his vehicle, Trayvon Martin came from around the left side of his vehicle, and the story Zimmerman gave was that Martin asked him, do you have a problem? Zimmerman said, no, I don't. And he said, well, you do now. Punched Zimmerman right in the nose. This knocked Zimmerman to the ground. Trayvon then got on top of him and proceeded to grab his head and beat the back of it against the sidewalk. The voice on the 911 call, Zimmerman said, was him, paired with an eyewitness who saw the event. The eyewitness was there. The eyewitness that gave the report was the one that Zimmerman was calling out for help to, according to all the story. That eyewitness said, hold on, and went upstairs to go dial the cops. Before he got through with everything with the cops, the gunshot had went off. Trayvon Martin was dead, and, we're here today. The things that I have a problem with this, because I'll go ahead and say this. Zimmerman was completely within his rights to carry the gun. It was legal. It was registered. None of that was an issue in this case. People said, "Oh, well, he was following Trayvon. If someone was following me, I would be getting nervous. I'd be willing to attack." And I get that. I share the same opinion of that, even. But there's really no proof that he was. We know that for what seemed like maybe a minute during the 911 call, Zimmerman had got out of the car and was proceeding to follow Trayvon. Now, at the same time, if anyone's ever been into a mall where there's security guards in the mall, if they suspect that you may have done something wrong, such as steal something or vandalize something, what do? They follow you. They're going to keep their distance. They want to see what's going on. This is part of their job. It's observing and reporting. If Trayvon Martin is getting out of eyesight, he's going to try to get him back into eyesight. Which Zimmerman said he lost Trayvon Martin by the end of the phone call and was going back to his truck, and then that's when Trayvon appeared near his vehicle and the scuffle occurred. Because a security officer who is hired by that neighborhood is doing his job, whether you think that he was stalking him or whatever, there is no proof of how long he was trailing Trayvon or anything like that, because the phone conversation stopped with the cops. Could George Zimmerman have kept following him, as a lot of people are suggesting? Absolutely, we don't know. What we do know is there was one eyewitness that said that the confrontation was taking place near the vehicle, so that corroborated with Zimmerman's story. There's also a story about, Trayvon was on the phone with his girlfriend at the time, and she was saying that he was being followed and this and that, which I guess could be some sort of an evidence, but there's no record of the phone call. I'm sure they got the report that says that the phone conversation did take place, but there's no recording of what was being said, so it's her word, against the word of multiple other people. So, the fact that Trayvon was being followed by a security guard in a gated community in which he did not live, mind you, Trayvon, I forget the exact city where he was living. It was like a little over 200 and some odd miles away. He had been suspended recently, was there with his father visiting. So Zimmerman had never seen this kid before this instance, which would make any security guard whose job is to try to observe and report the instances of what's going on around the neighborhood, would probably make anyone suspicious. When the story finally broke loose about a week and a half ago, this is what really got under my skin. At first, it really came out and it was trying to pit this racial picture that so many people, and I'll say it outright, such as Jackson, Sharpton, Farrakhan, and many of these other people, always try to divide our country up by race. Anytime there's an instance where a minority is killed by a white person, this is suddenly a disgrace. This for one has to stop. Blacks kill blacks, whites kill whites, Hispanics kill Hispanics. If it's a tragedy that a black person gets killed by a white person, then it's also a tragedy if a white person gets killed by a Hispanic, or if a Hispanic gets killed by a black person, and so on and so forth. Racism, it's not applicable to one race. It absolutely is not. And if you think it is, then please turn this video off right now, because nothing I say to you is going to make any sense in your pea-sized brain, okay? So the media comes out and tries to spin this. You know, George Zimmerman, of course, you've seen all the pictures. Nobody is putting up a picture of Trayvon as it currently is. They're putting up pictures of him 2 or 3 years ago on snowboarding trips, and you know, other things like that, where this kid is clearly not 17. He was 6'3", played football. The tiny little kid that was in the snowboarding picture was obviously not the same kid who got into an altercation with Zimmerman that night. So when the media is trying to spin this and spin this and spin this, eventually it comes out that Zimmerman is Hispanic, not fully white. I believe his father is white, but his mother is from Peru. He's got a very multicultural family, according to really good friends of his who are of all different races. He did all kind of mentoring. There was several people that him and his wife would take on weekend excursions and do tutoring programs and stuff like that with. Does that mean he's innocent? No, I'm just bringing it up because everyone on the news media wanted to talk about how Trayvon was this model person, yet George Zimmerman was not. They also tried to paint Zimmerman as this power-hungry guy who just couldn't cut the police force, when they were doing the initial very false reports that Zimmerman had called the cops 46 times in roughly a year. If you're still saying that, you are telling a lie. Almost every news publication has either went back and edited their article or has posted a new article. It was not 2011 to 2012 that all of these calls were made. It was 2001 to 2012. So you're talking about roughly 4 calls a year, which is not any kind of suspicious thing for someone who's in the business of being a security guard at a community. Not at all. If anything, in my opinion, it speaks to the fact that Zimmerman was not really a vigilante. He was trying to work with the cops. In my opinion, this is opinionated after all. I would think that if someone was looking to be a vigilante and trying to be this racially motivated, killer, I don't think he would call the cops that much at all. If anything. If he was out there just looking to murder a young black man in cold blood, why did he call the cops at all? Is a good question to ask. But as it came out that Zimmerman was Hispanic, suddenly, oh, well, this isn't about race anymore. Well, yeah, it was, especially when Jackson and Sharpton got down there. Jackson telling everyone that blacks are under attack in this country and all this and this. And I agree with, there was this a former NAACP leader, C.L. Bryant. He was the chapter president in Garland, Texas, who came out and bluntly told the Daily Caller that these individuals are trying to racially divide the country. If you go and look at Department of Justice numbers, black men, the number one killer of black men is other black men. If I'm not mistaken, even in the DOJ numbers, the whites are more likely to be killed by white people. People tend to be more susceptible to people of their own race You can say what you want to about racism. White people, a lot of us tend to feel, more at home with whites, blacks with blacks, Hispanics with Hispanics, Asians with Asians, so on and so forth. Doesn't mean they're racist. It's just you find common ground. They're probably members of your family and things of that nature, so you tend to be around more people of your own race. But what I just like Reverend C.L. Bryant want to know is, where's the outcry when a young black man is killed by another young black man? Or even further so, I'll do the race baiting for a second, when whites are killed by blacks. An injustice is an injustice no matter who it occurs to. Had this story been flipped and Zimmerman been black and Martin been white, it should have still been as much of a passionate topic for people. But sadly, it's not. And if you think that I'm lying, please leave a comment on this video and I will gladly rebuke everything you say about that.